What is up, y'all? It's your boy Trey, the CPA. Today we're going to be talking about what CPAs are actually bringing home, how much bacon they can give to their wives and their children in the future. But today we're going to talk about what you can realistically expect to make as a CPA early in your career if this is something that you're pursuing in the future. Now, the first thing I'm going to get on here and say is that compensation is very dependent on where you live and also your experience. I don't care if you're a CPA that just got your license. If you're good at selling yourself, you're probably going to make more than another CPA who's very timid and doesn't have the social skills. So there's a lot of factors that I'm going to talk about that determine what your ending compensation is going to be as a CPA, but I'm going to just give you guys a realistic picture of what it looks like in the accounting field with and without your CPA license. So I'm going to start by saying this. Yes, most CPAs are making over 6 figures a year. I know there's this kind of rumor mill or people just getting online saying CPAs don't make that much money, but the reality of it is that there's a lot of CPAs that are making over 6 figures a year. Actually, it's probably more common for you to see a CPA that's making 6 figures a year than it is to not see one making 6 figures a year. Now, all the people on the internet that get online and say CPAs don't make that much money, they probably don't have their license or they're just not that experienced. So my salary progression is going to be different from someone that lives in a high cost of living. My starting pay might be lower than other people, but that's really just because I live in a very cheap state. And if you're wondering where I live at, I live in North Dakota, Fargo specifically. So anyone from the Midwest, shout out to you guys. Love y'all. Let's keep rolling. All right, so I'm going to talk about my experience and then kind of relate this to what you guys can expect in the accounting field. So my first year, I was making about $52,000 straight out of college. So my first role, my title was just a financial accountant, and I was making around $52,000 because I had no idea what I was actually doing in the accounting space. They basically taught me everything I didn't know from when I was in college and basically taught me the etiquette for working a 9-to-5 job in total. So I know some of you guys might say, oh, that's too little of money, but for how much I was getting paid to how much I knew, that actually probably was a good deal on my part. I did a pretty good job in negotiating that. Now, I got that salary about 6 years ago, which is a lot different from what a lot of accounting students are graduating and getting now, because I've seen some accounting students at Big Four firms that are making somewhere close to $95,000 in their first year. But again, this is relevant to where I was at during the time and what I was facing. This was just before COVID kind of took place, so I was really in the lower range. So within a year of being at that job, I got an increase in my salary to about $55,000, which at the time I thought was a pretty good deal. And then the real magic happened. I made this decision to become a CPA because I saw someone else who was at the firm that was making pretty significant money. And I said, man, what is he doing that's very different from what I did? And I realized that a lot of his knowledge came from having a CPA license. So in my second year, I said, you know what? I'm going to go tackle the CPA. But like anyone else, I had the motivation, but I didn't have the strategy, so I never actually started studying for the exams. I felt like I was making pretty good money at $55,000 a year, and I was like, well, I can go take this exam, but it's going to cost me money, and I kind of pushed it off until I really wanted to expand into something that was more challenging. So I decided to make the jump from a private accounting firm into a publicly traded corporation, which essentially just expanded my knowledge base a bunch and also came with a little bit of a raise. So in my third year, I started working for just about $65,000 per year, and I thought that was even better money than what I was making before. Now, at this publicly traded company, I started to work in internal audit, so I got to go on vacation a bunch. By vacation, I mean corporate vacations where they allowed for us to travel, and I got to experience different states and do some on-site audits. In that time period, I learned a bunch, and I also got exposed to what it looks like to work with publicly traded companies and also see what it's like for the Big Four firms. And then I got to compare to what I was making at my company. So just in general, I saw that they were making probably $20,000 more starting than what I was making at my job. Well, again, this is in the Midwest, so they were making about $85,000 in comparison to what I was making at $65,000. Granted, I had been in the accounting space for about 2 years, and that's what they were starting at some of these Big Four firms. So during my time in internal audit, seeing that there was such a big pay discrepancy from what they were making versus what I was making, I knew that I was going to get my CPA license actually, and then go pursue public accounting. Now in public accounting, the salaries are pretty significant in comparison to what you get in a private company, just because they have such higher requirements in terms of hours and workload. This has to be talked about because there is a discrepancy in about how much money you make per hour if you do the math. Now if you're making $85,000 a year but you have to work 80 hours to get it, that's actually less per hour than what I was making at 65 when I was only working 40 hours per week. But you have to determine if that's worth it to you or not. For me personally, I thought, heck yeah, sign me up for more money even if it meant I had to work more hours. So seeing that the Big Four firm was coming to audit our stuff and I got to interact with them, I said, man, I actually think that I fit more on the public accounting side than I did in the private industry. So thus began the journey of me getting my CPA license. So back in 2022, I made the decision that I was going to get my CPA license and I wanted to get as much income as possible as soon as I got my license. So I took about 7 months of dedicated time to go take the CPA exams. I took about 2 months per exam, and then I took my last one in 1 month. And while I was in this process, I was still working full-time at the publicly traded company, which was good because it allowed for me to see some of the concepts that I was learning during the CPA exams in real time. In my second year, I made about $75,000 at the publicly traded company, and then I also got a bonus of around $10,000 that year. So I was doing pretty good there, but I knew there was still more money to be had. And after I got my CPA license, I wanted to test the market to see what the difference was between what I was making at a publicly traded company and what I would make in public accounting now that I had my CPA license. Now the publicly traded company decided to offer me a bonus because they knew I got my CPA license and they had a future for me there, but I just knew that I wanted to go into the public accounting space, and that bonus wasn't going to compare to what I was going to earn year over year with having my CPA license in public accounting. So I started the job search, I started looking for different jobs, and the first job that I got offered after getting my CPA license was just at $95,000. Now looking back on it, I probably should have just taken that first job, but I wanted to hit that 6-figure mark, so I didn't take that one. 3 months later, I got offered into the company that I'm currently with, and I started at about $115,000, which I thought was extremely good money for a low cost of living area that I live in now. And I mean, you guys are probably looking around in my apartment. It's pretty nice, but it's only about $1,500 a month, which is kind of unheard of for a 2-bedroom place, especially for one that no one has lived in before. Now, a year later, after working at my public accounting firm, I got a raise of just about $40,000. They basically tested the waters to see if I was good at what I did before, and after they determined that I was actually good, I had a total comp of just about $165,000 a year. And I've been with my CPA license for just about 2 years, so that kind of tells you the timeline that you can expect to start making some significant income. Now, the $1 million question I want to ask you guys is, do you guys think that I would be at the current income that I'm at if I didn't have my CPA license? Now, I know there's some extreme cases of people that don't have their CPA license that are earning more than me, but I do think that having your CPA license will accelerate the amount of money that you make a month, especially if you go into the public accounting space, because they rely on those people that have their licenses to sign on things like tax returns and audits. Now, I know that my case may be a little different from other people, but the traditional route of accounting, if you start out, you're probably going to be around the $70,000 to $80,000 mark when you first start, and then it should continue to increase year over year in the accounting space at a rate of about 10%. Personally recommend to anyone that you continue to job hop in your first couple of years. Let's say the first 3 to 4 years, you should be switching jobs to make sure that you're staying on par with the market. And in my communication with some other CPAs that are in the same area as me, most of them are making above the 6-figure mark, if not close into the high 6-figure mark. So total comp should be somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000 per year after you've been in the accounting space for between 5 to 10 years. Now, for any of you guys that are considering taking the CPA exam, if you're wondering if it's worth it, I highly recommend that you get your CPA license. There's few designations out there that can double, triple your income power with the cost of under $5,000 to get the whole thing completed. If you found this video helpful, or you have more questions about how you can get into becoming a CPA, or if you're interested in the accounting space or just finance information overall, please like and subscribe to this video because I post about once a week, and I do this for completely free, so you guys liking and subscribing on this will help me continue to keep this channel growing. Love you guys. See you guys on the next video.